and I apologize, but my computer is frozen, so I can't get to the rest of my board member.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'll jump in. The result of the stair pressurization process, which is really to make sure in the case of a fire, there's no smoke in the stairwells of this 9-story building, will require recapturing about 130 square feet from Global Protection. We're asking for permission to reduce their monthly fee by about $130 to accommodate for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does that conclude the presentation? Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 3, request authorization to amend the lease agreement with East West Boston LLC to remove approximately 200 square feet from the east-west lease area of 12 Channel Street, Suite 201, within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll jump in just in case. This is the same request, only for a different tenant. East West has been a tenant in the 12 Channel Street for over 20 years. They lease the entire 3rd floor and about 10,000 square feet on the 2nd floor. For the same reason as accommodating the stairwell pressurization project, we're requesting permission to reduce their lease premises by 200 square feet with a subsequent reduction in monthly fee of $191.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 4, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with Droplet Incorporated for the use of 7,987 square feet of 12 Channel Street, Suite 503, within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis, or Marine.
Suite 503 is a large open suite consisting of 7,987 square feet. It's unfinished space and has been vacant for quite some time. Suite 503 is a large open warehouse that is not temperature controlled. It has heat but no air conditioning. Droplet is an existing tenant at 12 Channel, both in Suite 601 and 602. The lease term commenced on February 1st, 2021. Droplet was founded in 2017 by 2 MIT-trained PhDs looking to treat a rare skin disease that causes fragile and blistering skin. Droplet is currently planning the build-out of Suite 601 and uses Suite 602 for production, packaging, distribution, and ancillary office space. In September 2021, Droplet approached BPDA requesting additional storage options at 12 Channel Street. Staff discussed Suite 503, which has been vacant for some time. Staff is proposing a 6-month lease commencing on December 1st, 2021, and are expiring May 31st, 2022, with 1 6-month option term. Droplet will pay $12,646 per month for the lease of Suite 503. In closing, staff is recommending that the director be authorized to enter a lease agreement with Droplet for the use of Suite 503 for 12 Channel Street. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 5, request authorization to amend the license agreement with the new Boston Pride Committee Incorporated for the use of 1,315 square feet of cage B7 in the basement of 12 Channel Street within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you. Boston Pride's office was previously located on the 5th floor of 12 Channel Street, Suite 504, beginning in 2016. Boston Pride is an organization committed to creating spaces for people of all walks of life and all identities by producing events and activities to achieve inclusivity equality, respect, and awareness in Greater Boston and beyond. On October 12, 2017, the BPDA Board approved a license which allowed Boston Pride to use cage B7, located in the basement of 12 Channel Street, for use as storage. The license term commenced on November 1st, 2017, and expired on March 31st, 2021. On March 11, 2021, the BPDA Board approved an extension of the license for the use of cage B7, which commenced on April 1st, 2021, and was scheduled to expire on March 31st, 2026. In July 2021, Boston Pride informed the BPDA that all their volunteers had resigned and they were no longer an active organization. They further stated that they would be dissolving the organization in the near future and thus would not be able to enter into the previously agreed license extension. Boston Pride then requested a new shorter term for the license extension to allow them to systematically handle the logistics of the business closure. Additionally, Boston Pride also vacated Suite 504 in July of 2021. Boston Pride currently pays and shall continue to pay $876 per month for cage B7. Staff is now proposing a one-year term, which commenced on April 1st, 2021, and will now expire on March 31st, 2022, with 2 6-month option terms. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Lansmore?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 6, request authorization of the assignment of the ground lease with SCD Dry Dock Q1 LLC to KRE 2DD Owner LLC for parcel Q1 located at 2 Dry Dock Avenue within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Parcel Q1 is a 36,799 square foot parcel located near the Summer Street entrance to the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. In 2014, BPDA contracted with prominent commercial real estate firm CBRE New England to market the site to potential developers on a national level. Investors from 10 states registered interest in the parcel, and 4 bona fide offers were received and vetted. As a result of the vetting and negotiation process, staff recommended to the board tentative designation status be awarded to Skanska USA Commercial Development, who formed SCD Dry Dock Q1 LLC. I'll refer to them as Skanska for the rest of this presentation. In 2018, Skanska was awarded final designation and subsequently developed a 234,000 square foot Class A office building. The building is currently 71% leased. Prominent tenants include advertising firm Mullen & Lowe, the Lord Hobo Brewery, and Shell Oil Company. We're requesting today authorization to assign the lease to KRE2DD Owner, LLC, which is a partnership formed by Kohlberg, Kravis, and Roberts, henceforth KKR, and Synergy Investments. KKR was formed in 1976 and is a leading investment firm that manages multiple asset classes, including private equity, credit, and real property. KKR has over $150 billion in assets under its management, with offices in 21 cities and 16 countries. Synergy Investments was founded in 2003 and is primarily focused on acquiring real estate opportunities in transit-oriented locations throughout Greater Boston. Synergy's assets exceed 4 million square feet and include office, retail, multifamily, and hospitality assets. We're pleased to say that Synergy currently leases from BPDA Old City Hall on School Street, and they've been a model and respectful tenant, and we have every expectation of the same commitment as the lessee of Parcel Q1. Other notable Synergy holdings include 10 Post Office Square, 25 Summer Street, 11 Beacon Street, and Center Plaza, so they are very familiar with doing business in Boston. And with your consent, looking forward to having them as a tenant. The partnership will assume all rights, obligations, terms, and conditions of the ground lease between BPDA and Skanska. And inasmuch as there is no transaction payable under the lease, the assignment will have no immediate financial impact on BPDA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsberg?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 7, request authorization to execute a memorandum of agreement with Motional AD LLC to test automated driving systems on public ways within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the request of the City of Boston, BPDA has licensed the use of Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park streets by Autonomy Inc., now known as Motional AD, for the purpose of testing automated driving systems since 2017. In January of 2020, BPDA joined the City of Boston, Massachusetts Department of Transportation, or MassDOT, the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, and DCR, Massachusetts Port Authority, or Massport, to execute a memorandum of agreement to test automated driving systems on all public streets in Massachusetts, including Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Many other municipalities throughout the Commonwealth were also party to this MOA. The MOA is also signed individually by private companies looking to take advantage of the opportunity to utilize the public roadways. As co-signer of the 2020 MOA, Motional was afforded the rights to utilize Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park roadways for the term of the agreement, which now expires on December 31st of 2021, at the end of next month. The City of Boston has again asked BPDA to join in signing a new MOA effective January 1st, 2022, with all the parties that I previously mentioned to continue the testing of automated driving systems on public streets in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which would include the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Key terms and conditions of the MOA include that only vehicles approved by MassDOT may participate. Conditions include strict compliance with National Highway Safety Administration standards and federal motor vehicle safety standards. There is specific signage on the vehicle indicating that it is a test vehicle. There is a thorough pre-test safety inspection required of all vehicles. The testing route must be pre-approved by MassDOT and the host municipality in advance. All vehicles will have a test driver on board who is capable of taking control of the vehicle at any time for any reason. There are very strict insurance requirements as well as strict reporting protocol in the event of a mishap. In addition to the insurance requirements, each autonomous vehicle company that's a party to the agreement will indemnify all parties by name, including EDIC, against any lawsuits arising from the use of public roadways for the testing of the autonomous vehicles. We believe that signing the new MOA is in BPDA's best interest, in as much as it negates the need for BPDA to negotiate individual licenses with autonomous vehicle companies in a vacuum. And it puts the responsibility on the qualified individuals at MassDOT to process, test, inspect, and approve all vehicles and autonomous vehicle companies on behalf of BPDA. So we're requesting permission to join the memorandum of agreement, again, which would also include MassDOT, DCR, Massport, in the City of Boston, as long in this case, as well as Motional AD, concerning the testing of automated driving systems on public roads in Massachusetts, consistent with the other public sector partners on the MOA, no fees proposed. And that's my presentation.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board?
I'm sure that given the years of testing that these licensees have been undertaking on our public roads, there's some very interesting and almost certainly proprietary information that's been generated that we probably could not look at. But I have to wonder, given the innovative use of this technology, whether there isn't some kind of qualitative update that we could be given on what has been happening with this testing.
With your permission, I've asked Chris Carter has graciously joined us from the mayor's office, who is managing the autonomous project. And Chris is on now. Maybe Chris could answer that question.
Yeah, happy to jump in here, Dennis. And a great question there, Mr. Landsmark. Chris Carter, I co-chair the Mayor's Office of Newer Mechanics, and alongside the transportation department here at the city of Boston, help sort of oversee this program in relationship to MassDOT, EDIC, Massport, all those other sort of parties that Dennis was listing. That is part of the intent of being at the table on testing and sort of creating this three-part process where there's not only an application that companies make, but also this MOA and a testing plan that also gets reviewed. Inside that MOA is a requirement for reporting. So until now, companies have had to report quarterly their updates, and we ask, described in that MOA are some specific questions about what should cities be preparing for? What are sort of the learnings that we can take away from this testing? We don't necessarily need to see your sensor data, but we want to know what are the challenges you're experiencing on the roadways, what kind of things are you seeing, and how do we think about our future designs for roadways to make sure that everything is operating the way it should be, but we're also prioritizing our most vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists, in that whatever that future autonomous and connected world might be. So all those reports live both on the city's website and on MassDOT's website. They get updated on a fairly regular basis, and there's sort of interesting learnings in each of those that we try to sort of host that repository and then sort of push it out to the community as well. Both those companies in sort of the pre-COVID era invited in neighborhood groups and transportation advocates to come and learn about the technology in sort of a classroom setting with their engineers, and then also go out on test rides as well, so that they could feel more comfortable about it, but also ask whatever question might be bubbling up for them to understand about the technology and where it goes. We'd like to do more of that, as sort of health protocols allow us to do so, and those companies are reopened for or allowing us to have that type of engagement.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. How many companies are going to be participating? What is the maximum number of test companies you see participating? And also, are there any mishaps that have happened that you could tell us about? What is the safety record?
Sure, excellent questions. The program has been in existence since 2016, with the first actual miles being driven in 2017. Since then, we've only had 2 companies in the state of Massachusetts and the Commonwealth that have been testing. That was the one that Dennis just referenced, Motional, which used to have a different name, was Autonomy, and Optimus Ride is the other company. In terms of what the maximum number is, within Boston, to be determined. I don't think, in the industry at large right now, there's probably not more than a dozen players in this space that are doing, significant work, as well as a whole bunch of smaller players. But I don't think we anticipate a large growth of more companies coming in to do testing work here in the city of Boston, but certainly could think about how we would accommodate those. On the what has the driving record been, there has not been an incident in the city of Boston. We also specify in the MOA crash reporting, both minor and major crashes, and also crashes that happen from those companies that might be in other jurisdictions. So Motional does testing in a few other locations around the country. So in case of a minor or a major crash that happens there, the city of Boston and all the signatories on this agreement would be notified of that, and those protocols that go into place to sort of evaluate that and remove that risk from the road immediately until we're able to sort of understand what those are. But to date, no incidents. Vehicles travel at or below the speed limit, which in the city of Boston is 25 miles an hour. They are, at least from my experience being in them, drive incredibly cautiously out there, and also have a safety driver at the wheel at all times. That goes through a significant amount of training, as well as both of these companies that we have testing on our roadways now use something called a safety associate that they put in the passenger seat as well to be monitoring the vehicle so that the driver is really focused on what's happening on the roadway.
And I know Mr. Landsmark has asked in the past about kind of a return on investment for this public, or kind of the public is investing in the development of this technology. And if the technology of the companies are sold or go to market in some way, what is the return to the public?
It's a good question. I guess it depends how you think about what the return should be. If the return is dollars, to my knowledge, there's not a jurisdiction in the country that's sort of charging or extracting or sort of has an investment in one of these companies to then cash out if the company sells or something. If you think about that return on investment as being about safety, then it's potentially a pretty big payout. So in the US, that's 36,000 vehicle deaths that happen every year. In the Commonwealth, it was 321 in 2019 and 10 in Boston. 94% of those, according to NHTSA, are some sort of human error. So if we're able to reduce human error in crashes, that results in fewer people losing their lives, the ROI here is really strong. If you want to take the economic development lens to it, this is creating an industry here in the city of Boston. Boston's not known as maybe as creating sort of automotive jobs in the past. A lot of that lives in sort of the middle section of the country. These companies combined have added over 350 jobs just in the past few years here, directly into their offices in the Seaport and in the Marine Industrial Park.
Great, thank you.
If we were a university or a venture capitalist and patents came out of the algorithms and AI that were being refined here, we would be looking for financial return on our investment. And I do think that there's value to a public-private partnership as we have here that helps focus on improving safety. But I guess I'm always going to ask the question, why is it that we are sharing a public asset in this way without seeing some kind of financial benefit? And I guess I'll continue to ask that in the hope that at some point we begin to think that way, because the city can use the revenue as well as using the sense of being an innovative place for improving public safety on the roads. I favor this work, but I also think that we ought to think of ourselves as partners in this process who can derive other kinds of benefits as well.
From my vantage point, as understand my role in the agency, we were negotiating very early with the autonomous companies for just that purpose. The challenge for us was the fact that all the other municipalities and all the other quasi-public corporations in Massachusetts were not charging. I didn't have a lot of leverage to negotiate with. So that's from the micro of that's my situation. I don't, if this wants to speak globally, I'll defer to him, but on an island, we still have a lot of leverage here.
And Mr. Lansmark, I agree with you. There's maybe some ability to think about what is equity stake in companies that are doing not just autonomous vehicle testing, but any sort of testing on a public asset, right? And there's certainly a large number of companies that have spun up in the ride-sharing space or the food delivery space or the micromobility space over the last 4 years, if you're just going to look at transportation, where that has not been a place for cities. But I like the idea of figuring out how to make that work in the future. So I'd be interested in having that conversation with you offline if you're interested in it too.
Great. Additional questions or comments?
I have just one comment, Chairwoman. You can go a step further, Chris, and I'm in favor of this, but it's one of those things I don't think you can completely control. Boston has topped NIH funding now for, I think, 23 or 20, maybe 25 years. All public tax money going to institutions that benefit greatly from the monies and research, and of course we do as the public as well. And you go just modern day history, Moderna. How much taxpayer money went to Moderna? It created, just the Globe reported last week, how many millionaires did that create from taxpayer money? So it's one of those things you can keep going and going and going. It's not fair sometimes, but it's something to look at, but I don't know if you can control it. But again, I'm in favor of it, and I agree we should keep it here because it's not going the other way. It's going to continue to go forward.
Additional questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 8, request authorization to execute a memorandum of agreement with Optimus Ride Incorporated to test automated driving systems on public ways within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Madam Chair, this is the exact same presentation as was just presented for promotional AD. I'm happy to repeat it for the public record if you would like. I'll take your lead.
No, I don't think that's necessary. Additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 9, thank you. Request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for general repair and maintenance services for EDIC-owned properties for 1 year with 2 one-year options. Laura.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and members of the board for the opportunity to present this and the next 2 items on our agenda. I'm requesting authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for general repair and maintenance services. This is a joint procurement with the EDIC acting as lead jurisdiction on behalf of the BRA, so I'll come before you again as part of the BRA agenda later today. As you know, the BPDA's real estate team manages our portfolio of properties as though we live next door, which requires support from a variety of contractors across many specialized trades. Rather than continuing to handle individual projects as they arise, our goal through this procurement is to put multiple work order or as-needed contracts in place with a diverse group of contractors, enabling us to be more proactive and efficient in responding to issues. Publicly advertising these projects and streamlining the bid and contracting process will also build relationships with and capacity of small, local, and diverse firms. We hope that this will fit in really nicely with the equitable procurement plan that Michelle will be updating the board on later today. Given the range of services and expertise being sought, the BPDA intends to award contracts to multiple contractors across multiple service categories, including both horizontal or public works construction and vertical or building construction. The main categories of work will include general contracting, as well as repairs and maintenance for roadways, utilities, masonry, fencing, painting, marine infrastructure, roofing, plumbing and drains, electrical systems, glass window and door systems, and last but not least, emergency response and cleanup services. Staff do not currently expect the aggregate annual value of this program to exceed $300,000 in the first year, with the possibility to expand the program over time for a total program value not expected to exceed $1.2 million over 3 years. The resulting contracts will be awarded to the responsible and responsive bidders with the lowest total bid prices across each category of service, and this will be funded through the BPDA operating budget. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
We will get an update on the new procurement guidelines later, and I'll raise the question more substantively then, but presumably we're doing this at least in part, apart from increasing efficiency, to create greater opportunities for diverse contractors to become a part of this pool. And I'll just comment that I want to make sure that we're monitoring the work that goes out under these small contracts, because they are a point of entry into larger work within the agency and city. And I'll wait for the procurement presentation for details on that, but I just wanted on the record that this is something we're going to be watching closely.
The management of the work orders within this program under this contract has been something that our procurement and finance teams have put a lot of thought into. So I'll pause for a moment if Michelle wants to jump in now. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll hear more on that theme from her later today.
I think later is fine.
Oh, okay. Great. Excellent.
Okay, additional questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 10, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for project number 9519C, inspection, testing, servicing, and full preventative maintenance of fire alarm equipment within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Laura.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. I'm requesting authorization to advertise and issue this invitation for bids. Specifically, this includes inspection, testing, servicing, and maintenance for fire alarm equipment at 3 buildings, 12 Channel Street, 22 Dry Dock Avenue, and 12 Dry Dock Avenue within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. All work will be performed in accordance with the recommendations of the manufacturers, the National Fire Protection Association, and the City of Boston's Fire Alarm Division within the Fire Department. The invitation for bid will be publicly advertised, including affirmative marketing to small, local, and diverse businesses, and will include all applicable wage requirements. The resulting contract will be awarded to the responsible and responsive bidder with the lowest total bid price, which is not expected to exceed $150,000 for a 3-year term. Thank you for your consideration, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 11, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for qualifications for house doctor architectural and engineering services on an as-needed basis for EDIC-owned properties. Laura.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. I'm requesting authorization for a program with similar goals and structure, but a very different area of service as my first presentation today a few minutes ago. This request for qualifications will be a joint procurement with the EDIC acting as lead jurisdiction on behalf of the BRA. Therefore, you will once again see me as part of the BRA agenda. The BPDA, like other city and state agencies, has utilized house doctor contracts, which is the industry term, as a cost-effective and efficient way to get architectural and engineering services. These support the repair, maintenance, and improvement of BPDA-owned properties. As with the general repairs program that I presented to you earlier, our goal is to put multiple work order or as-needed contracts in place with a diverse group of contractors, enabling us to be more proactive and efficient, and to streamline, to publicly advertise the contracts and to streamline the process of contracting with us to build relationships and capacity among small, local, and diverse firms. We're particularly excited about this since we've had a lot of success in the past working particularly with women-owned firms in this area, so we're really excited to build on that. The procurement will be pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 7C, and the scope of work will include a wide range of design services within 13 different categories. We do not expect the aggregate annual value of this program to exceed $250,000 in the first year, with the possibility to expand the program over time. We would not expect the total program value to exceed $1.2 million over 3 years. The budgets for future years of the program will be subject to board approval through the annual operating budget process. Thank you once again for your consideration, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Laura. Item number 12, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals to hire a licensed design consultant to provide assessment and design services to report on the condition of the storm drain infrastructure within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. William.
Yes, thank you and good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here before you today with 4 requests that are reflective of coordinated efforts between the real estate, finance, and legal teams to accelerate our capital improvement efforts, both to address long-term capital needs, but also to advance climate resiliency efforts across our portfolio of properties. The first up is a request for authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals to procure a qualified civil engineering firm to inspect, assess, and design necessary repairs and improvements to the storm drain system in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. The overall project site consists of approximately 3 miles of roadway infrastructure and includes an independent storm drain system consisting of over 200 maintenance holes, over 250 catch basins, nearly a mile of drainage pipe, and 2 outfalls to Boston Harbor. The existing system is going on 100 years old. It's in its 90s currently. It was originally constructed in the 1930s by the U.S. military, and the last comprehensive assessment dates back to 1995. So the resulting design contract is budgeted at $500,000. It is funded by the City of Boston's Capital Improvement Program. And to facilitate the intended transfer of the Marine Park roadways to the City of Boston, the contract will include construction documents to upgrade the system to meet the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, as well as the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority standards. And improvements to advance climate resiliency to handle storm surges and sea level rise will be included. Plans and specifications will be prepared in accordance with Chapter 3039M of the Massachusetts General Laws. The contract will also include permitting, bidding assistance, resident engineering services, and construction administration. The request for proposal will be advertised following the BPDA's designer selection policy. This opportunity will be posted on the BPDA website, bulletin boards, the Boston Herald, the state's Combis system, and directly marketed with disadvantaged firms and various online trade publications. The engineering contract will be awarded to the top-ranked engineer through a qualifications-based selection process after, of course, being brought back before the board for approval. So therefore, we are requesting the secretary be authorized to advertise and issue the request for proposals to procure the engineering services. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
William, can you give us a little context for these 4 capital improvement projects in terms of our overall capital improvement list? Like, were these the top 4 on the list currently? And what kind of time frame are we talking about for actually completing them? And, you know, do we have a lot of other things lined up that need to be addressed soon? Or can you give us a little context?
Yeah, as you know, we do have quite a lengthy list of needed repairs. When we assess our overall capital needs, we do prioritize them on various priorities, and we want to make sure that we do address the most significant. This one was found to be urgent mostly because of its resiliency implications. As the sea levels continue to rise, with this water being an outfall to the Boston Harbor, we need to be very cognizant about how the rising sea levels are going to impact our ability to drain the water from the marine park. We also have to take into account the increase of storm activity and the more significant storm surges. We are seeing greater impact within the marine park when we do get a great influx of water. It is taking longer for it to recede and drain out. There's a lot of investment in the marine park, both of public funds and private funds. And this is one of the foundational steps to actually make sure that all of the infrastructure that's being created here in the park is sustainable and able to withstand the increase in storm activity as well as the sea level rise. I'll talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, and the individual projects about how they were prioritized. I will say we are getting ready to begin the planning for the next fiscal year capital budget. We'll do that in December in advance of taking it to you later next year. And we are looking at all of our portfolio, first and foremost with the lens of public safety, but also to make sure that there is no deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed with climate resiliency lens.
Great, thank you.
This work hasn't been done in decades, which on one level suggests that it may not need to be done a lot, but particularly because we're focusing on resilience, it's pretty clear that there's going to be a lot more of this kind of work covering all 4 of these projects into the future. And these are the kinds of green jobs that resilience responses will generate into the future. And I want to make sure that the RFPs have some kind of priority built in for those firms that come forward that will train women and people of color and Boston residents so that they'll be eligible and available to do this kind of work into the future.
We absolutely agree. And this is going to be one of our first RFPs for a designer that takes it a step further in pushing the desire to have a more diverse, responsive. I'll let Michelle speak a little bit more to that when she gets to the equitable procurement, but this is one of the first RFPs where we're actually going to ask folks to provide to us their diversity and inclusion plan. So it's something that previously the agency has been silent on. Now we're actually making it a requirement that they start to show us some of their plans on how these firms further further the diversity of their own teams. Something that the city and the agency has been able to do with respect to real estate development, something we're trying to push the envelope on when it comes to actually contracting with both designers and contractors. We have more flexibility when it comes to designers than we do directly with contractors, because state procurement is very strict when it comes to construction contracts, but there's more flexibility when it comes to design, and we are looking at that.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
A roll call for a vote, Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 13, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the Harbor Walk and climate resiliency improvements at Wharf 8 and Pier 10 project within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. William.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So this is an exciting one for me. It's a two birds with one stone sort of thing. So we're requesting an authorization to advertise the request for proposals to procure a qualified maritime engineering firm to design necessary repairs and improvements to Wharf 8 and Pier 10 in the Marine Park. The project site consists of Wharf 8, which is back and behind the Leader Bank Pavilion at the front of the park, and Pier 10, which is down past the Innovation Design Building at the other end of the park. Both sites are in need of resiliency improvements to address flood risks, as well as structural repairs to the existing maritime infrastructure. But what we're also getting out of this is improvements to the public realm so that we can promote public access, extend the Harbor Walk specifically back and behind the Leader Bank Pavilion. You know the Harbor Walk goes back and around it, but you cannot continue all the way down around Fleet Kennedy, so we want to make that connection. The resulting design contract is budgeted at $450,000. It is also funded by the City of Boston. The primary goals of this project, protect the existing maritime structures, but also increase climate resilient efforts and improve the Harbor Walk public realm. Plans and specifications will be prepared in accordance with Chapter 3039M of Massachusetts General Laws, and the contract will also include permitting, bidding assistance, resident engineering services, and construction administration. The proposal will be advertised similarly to my previous presentation, and Ms. Downs, I will say, in response to your question earlier, again, it's looking to make sure that the structural integrity of this current waterfront infrastructure, the seawall, the bulkhead, everything that is retaining the filled earth, that it remains in place. If we don't take care of it properly, then what is the marine park, which is filled tidal lands, will start to turn back into what was there before, which was mostly flowed tidal lands and not what we see today. We also want to make sure that we address the flood access points. And if appropriate, one of the things this will look at is how to elevate the seawall, whether it's a permanent structure, a removable structure. They'll look at that and try to determine the best way to address the potential flooding with both storm surge and sea level rise, while maintaining and prioritizing the public access to the harbor. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote, Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 14, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the engineering design services for the street survey and PIC documentation for the street transfer project within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. William.
All right, thank you again. So again, this is a request and authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals, this time procuring a qualified civil engineering firm. They'll be charged with inspecting, assessing, and designing necessary repairs and improvements to the roadways within the park. But similar to the storm drain, we have 3 miles of roadway infrastructure. It includes the streets, the sidewalks, and the streetlights. And the roadways are planned for a transfer from the BPDA to the City of Boston. In order for that to happen, we need to evaluate the existing infrastructure, identify what might not comply with current city standards as how they have changed over time. That will enable us to negotiate with the City of Boston and decide what improvements, if any, are necessary to the infrastructure prior to the city taking on the streets. You may recall we have the Northern Avenue Mobility Project that is kicking off soon. This is an example of something that we are trying to do to upgrade the roadway infrastructure within the park to make it more consistent with what the city is trying to do, with respect to multimodal transportation, cyclists, pedestrians, while mitigating the fact that we are a marine industrial park and we have heavy traffic, truck traffic, that is. So the resulting design contract, it's budgeted at $500,000, and it is also funded by the City of Boston's Capital Improvement Program. And to facilitate the intended transfer of the roadways, as I said, the contract will include construction documents to upgrade the roadways to meet the city standards, but it'll also result in the generation of Public Improvement Commission documents to detail the streets to facilitate that transfer. The request for proposals will be advertised similar to my previous presentations with additional outreach to disadvantaged firms. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Additional questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 15, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for engineering design services for bulkhead rehabilitation at the South Jetty located within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. William.
All right, thanks again. So this one is an authorization to advertise a request for proposals to procure a qualified maritime engineering firm. It will look at the replacement of a portion of the South Jetty bulkhead here in the Raven L. Flynn Marine Park. The project site is 370 linear feet of a severely deteriorated steel sheet pile bulkhead. It is adjacent to a bulkhead that we replaced last year at the East Jetty. You may recall we had a similar steel sheet pile bulkhead there. We excavated behind the bulkhead and installed a new precast concrete block bulkhead, which will hold back the filled earth and hold up against the wave action from the harbor. We need to continue that effort around the corner here to, again, hold back the jetty. So this is a design contract. It's estimated at about $120,000. Plans and specifications will be prepared for Chapter 3039M. It will include permitting, bidding assistance, resident engineering services, construction administration. It'll be advertised similarly as the previous presentations. The subsequent construction work, however, is currently budgeted in the $2 million range. It is already in our FY22 capital budget. That work will be brought back before the board at the appropriate time and bid in compliance with Chapter 3039M. It will follow what we did at around the corner at the jetty to allow us in the future, as the sea level continues to rise, we can adjust our bulkhead as necessary without completely reconstructing. So what we did previously is the masonry precast concrete blocks. If we need to continue to elevate that higher, we've already engineered the foundation of that structure to allow us to add additional concrete blocks. So it'd be a relatively efficient way to go back out and adjust the seawall bulkhead without having to fully reconstruct it. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Mr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you, William.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, item number 16, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposal to engage outside consultants and/or firms to conduct a benchmark compensation study and to make recommendations to update the BPDA's current compensation plan in accordance with the study. David.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. In front of you today is a request for approval for the Boston Planning and Development Agency to release an RFP to engage an outside consultant to conduct the benchmark compensation study and to make recommendations to update the current BPDA compensation plan. In 2015, the BPDA engaged a consultant to create a compensation plan and structure. The resulting product was a salary structure broken down by department with corresponding titles and pay grades. This plan was last updated in 2019, and the consultant that performed these services and updates is no longer available. The current economic and jobs market is different than it was a few years ago and is rapidly changing. Maintaining a qualified, talented, and diverse workforce that continues to serve the city is important and necessary. This will require an analysis of staff positions to make sure that we are accurate in our job requirements and to ensure that we are internally equitable and externally competitive. For these reasons, we seek your approval to release the RFP. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, motion is in order.
I just want to say I think this is very important, and I'm happy that we're doing this, and I'm so moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Item number 17, personnel. David?
Thank you again. Yes, this evening, I have 5 appointments for your consideration. Indira James, a financial coach, career specialist in the Office of Workforce Development, effective November 29th. Michelle Slater, records specialist in compliance, also effective up to November 29th. Travis Anderson, a senior infrastructure and energy planner in planning with an effective date of November 29th. Kathleen Onifer, an assistant deputy director for downtown and neighborhood planning, also in planning, effective December 6th. And Quinn Vulchich, project assistant in development review, effective December 13th. There was 1 employment service contractor, Irina Colin, in the Office of Workforce Development, effective November 22nd. We have 3 co-ops. Helen Vo in research, starting on January 3rd. Theodore Walinskas in planning, starting on January 4th. And Michael Abdel Nassai in planning with an effective date of January 17th. We also have 6 departures. Joyce Armstrong, public records assistant in administration, effective October 22nd. Pioshin Jin, a GIS SQL applications developer in MIS GIS, effective October 22nd. Muxi Undermeer, interim assistant deputy director of downtown and neighborhood planning, effective October 27th. McKenna Parker, project assistant in development review, October 29th. Rosa Herrero De Andres, a senior planner 1 in planning, October 29th. And Xavier Savage, a special projects coordinator in the Office of Workforce Development, effective October 29th also. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are going to do items number 18 and 19 together. Finance, the equitable procurement plan for fiscal year 22 first quarter update, and the FY21 end of year and FY22 first quarter update. Michelle.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. I'm Michelle Goldberg, the Interim Director of Finance for the BPDA, and I have 2 updates for you today. Neither will require a vote, and I am happy to take questions at the conclusion of both presentations. First, I will provide an equitable procurement update. I am joined with Mary Reeves, our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and we have some exciting information for you. Afterwards, I will briefly review our operating and capital budget update. Next slide, please. So first for our equitable procurement update. Next slide, please. In May 2021, this board approved the BPDA Equitable Procurement Plan. Part of the plan required that the Director of Finance, who is also the CPO, provide a quarterly update on the progress of equitable procurement efforts. This plan attempts to remove the barriers that disadvantaged businesses face when seeking government contracting opportunities. The BPDA began implementing this plan immediately upon its passage, and we've made great progress. The proposed timeline was to carry through the end of this fiscal year, and we have some larger items that will go on into the future fiscal years. A very big thank you to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the IT department, legal, and everybody who has contributed to this work. Next slide, please. We focused in 5 key areas. In the appendix of this presentation, you will see a line item update for each action. Out of those 22 actions, 16 we consider complete. We focused on process and design, community outreach, data collection, reporting and accountability, and our resource allocation. So I definitely encourage folks to check in on the details, but I'll provide a summary. Next slide, please. So our remaining actions, as I had mentioned, will focus on updates to our financial system and additional online tools to enhance the experience. However, we've made great progress. The CPO is actively monitoring small purchases and directing staff to seek additional quotes when possible. The buying plan is published live and available on our website. We are using Airtable, which will allow folks to group, sort, slice and dice the information in whatever way is helpful. We really encourage folks to check that out. We have an equitable procurement website that goes along with it, connects all of our networks and great partners that Barry will be able to explain. And so we're just really excited to have that resource up. Staff has been hired, trained, and are already adding value. We conducted an agency-wide training on the equitable procurement plan to let folks know that this is the law of the land and how we're operating now. The working group has been meeting regularly, and we're going to be shifting our focus in this group to really be a project-by-project focus as opposed to implementation for the plan. We also, on November 8th, I believe, released a request for proposals seeking consulting services to help us develop a technical assistance program in partnership with the City of Boston. And so this is finally the result of our participation in the Living Cities cohort. And so we are seeking professional services to come in and help us develop a BPDA specific technical assistance program that still plugs in and fits into the larger ecosystem of technical assistance that the city and our partners are providing. Next slide, please. So our baseline data has not changed much since we did our disparity study. So we right now have 87 total vendors with $33 million of active contracts. So this includes, if we have an option year, we're assuming that we would exercise that option. Of those 87 vendors, 15 are considered disadvantaged businesses with $7.6 million of active contracts. As we can see, our trend persists that it is majority. This large blue box here represents our women-owned firms at $7 million. And then on the side, you can see the other categories. Our hope is that we grow the pie for everyone and we start to see these side column numbers increase while the 7 million holds steady. Next slide, please. So overall, we are still functioning at 23% utilization, with majority of that being women-owned entities. Since we instituted this plan, we have done 13 additional advertising on solicitations that are below the threshold. We have been working to unbundle very specific projects that we feel that there's enough availability that it will be competitive to break those projects up. And so it's been very helpful to have the disparity study to allow us to do that. Some of the examples of projects that we've done additional outreach on include the undermining repairs and timber repairs at Pier 10, as well as citywide grass cutting and landscaping. This is a great example of outreach efforts. We went to an event, we met a business owner, and we're now walking them through the process of obtaining a bond and kind of getting them into the contracting space. To Dr. Landsmark's questions about work order agreements, this is a very specific effort that we've focused on. The idea with these contracts is that once we get all of the contracts in place, there's still a mechanism inside those agreements that requires a solicitation process. And so if we have 3 or 4 providers that can do the same service, we still want to establish competition amongst the group. So anyone who is participating would have an opportunity to respond. In these cases, traditionally, time is of the essence, and it's low price and who can get it done the quickest. So we feel very confident that this is going to be a way for us to get more providers on contract and then hopefully be able to deploy that work as well. Additionally, other areas that we've done some updates that didn't make the slide, but William mentioned, we are exploring in our designer selection process, inserting language to start to collect diversity plans. We want to be very careful when it comes to this because sometimes diversity plans can function as a barrier. It's one more administrative piece of information that somebody would have to prepare and submit in order to be awarded. And sometimes we find the exact firms we wish to do business with are not necessarily holding or leading the diversity plan. And so we want to be mindful how we gather that information. So essentially what we've done is established a value statement saying we care about this. We're going to start to collect those diversity plans. We are not going to use them currently for rule for award, but our hope is to gather information to get to a place where we can make really good determinations and rubrics about what distinguishes an effective diversity plan from a not effective plan. And I think another example where we've been experimenting is trying to bake it right into the technical proposal itself. And so I would point to Plan Charlestown as that example, where rather than asking for a diversity plan or a separate statement, we simply said, now in addition to urban design and transportation principles and the other areas that we expect you to be an expert in, we also expect your technical proposal to reflect that you deal with equity issues, you are mindful of it, and understand how to apply these ideas in your respective work. And so we're going slowly in that regard to try to make sure that the juices get squeezed out there. Next slide, please. Here's where I will invite Barry, and thank you, Barry, for all the great work that you guys have done on our community outreach effort. Take it away, Barry.
Thanks, Michelle. Madam Chair, Board, thanks so much for the opportunity to present before you. And like Michelle said, we're excited about the work that we've been able to accomplish and do in our outreach, community outreach. We believe that one of our chief responsibility was to broaden our ecosystem to allow us to reach as many diverse vendors as we possibly could. We also wanted to ensure that we had corporate relationships and partnerships that allowed us to work strategically with certain category groups of vendors. And so what we've done is that we've established a list of contact networks, not only to help us better understand the market, but also to serve as an advisory role to us to help us better understand how to advertise, how to communicate, how to provide better technical assistance to these groups, as well as establishing engaging connect events that allow us to specifically publish and promote all the opportunities for spending within our different diverse categories as well. You'll be happy to know that we're actually conducting one of our first engaging connect events with Amplify Latinx. I think tomorrow we'll be supporting them in doing that. And so we're also working with BECMA to be supporting an event in February, and well as the Greater New England Minor Supplementary Reverse Council in January. So we believe that not only by having these effective partnerships, but also being very proactive in promoting the fact that we are spending and that we're wanting to do great business, and we wanted to understand the market, not just here in the greater local Boston area, but regionally as well. So we're excited about the work that we're doing, and we believe that we're going to see a return on these investments that we've done. So thank you so much once again for allowing me to share and participate. Michelle?
Thank you so much, Barry. Next slide, please. As I had mentioned, we have launched our online presence. And so I have a couple screenshots here, and I really encourage folks to go and check it out. We've created a space for equitable procurement where folks are able to access this plan. They're able to access our disparity study in full so that folks can read it, also connect with all of our partnerships. And then there's a direct link to our buying plan that we hope will help folks understand in the next 24 months where the opportunities are, how to line up and get prepared for those opportunities in advance. And so, like Barry said, just starting tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we'll be sitting down with folks with Amplify Latinx, and this will be kind of our first effort to bring the buying plan to a group, talk about it, and see how folks respond. So we're really excited about the work that's going on here. Next slide, please. With that, I'd love to skip over to our finance update. Next slide, please. In the first quarter update, I will share how the previous fiscal year ended and review activities for the first quarter. Last fiscal year, FY21, started on June 30, 2020. The FY21 budget was prepared at the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak. We established a conservative budget and made reductions to administrative discretionary spending to be prudent. For areas that the BPDA staff had deep insight, our operating budget projections were right on target for FY21. Our estimates for leaseholders needing deferments held steady, and later on we can see how parking revenue performed. What we did not anticipate when crafting the FY21 budget was that certain activities in the marketplace would result in multiple one-time extraordinary payments made to the BPDA. Majority of those one-time items came in the first 2 quarters of FY21. The BRA, for example, received Castle Square revenue that made it so that the EDIC did not need to send an intercompany grant to the BRA. So the variances you see in contracted services and grants and donations, grants revenue are related. Most of the other one-time items came in through EDIC. And from an expense point of view, it took staff a little while to adjust to life in a remote environment. Once we adapted to our new reality, spending slowly started to return, but ultimately our large construction projects were not able to proceed, and so the variances will be moved into our funds and be held when the time comes to deploy for our construction projects and so on. Next slide, please. So here are some highlights. Additionally, employee benefits remains low, and we've been doing a great job at controlling our costs. Again, as a reminder, the EDIC is partially self-insured, and we have been enjoying a relief of pressure in that regard. OWD received the grants that they were expecting and were able to conduct their business as usual. And it really was those select property management expenses that we weren't able to incur. Next slide, please. So parking revenue. As you can see, this is kind of a busy graph, but what we were trying to demonstrate is that parking had been performing nicely until around March 2020. We did feel quite a bit of reduction. The dotted gray line is what our outside management firm was projecting for revenue. As you can see for FY21, we just drew a straight line. We weren't sure what to think. We did start to build in seasonality, and so for the purposes of FY22 first quarter, we are pleased to see higher than expected return to parking revenue. Some of this is just due to construction workers needing to access our lots, but we were not expecting events to come back as soon as they did. We were not expecting cruise revenue to come through, and it did trickle in a little bit. And some of our tenants purchased parking for their employees, and so overall, we are starting to slowly return to pre-pandemic levels, which is very encouraging. Next slide, please. When it comes to capital, I think similar story. You all tonight just approved a whole bunch of requests to advertise for design contracts, and so it is moving along as we have anticipated. So although spending is low in the first quarter, we are hopeful that it will continue to move forward, and all of these projects are going to be active very soon. With that, I think that's the last slide. Is there another slide? Yes, that's the conclusion. I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michelle and Barry. Questions or comments from the board?
Well, I would like to ask Barry a question. Barry, in your new role, as you have been reaching out and trying to build our ecosystem of professional partners and small business experts, what have you found as you've been talking to people? How have you been received, and what was their impression of the BPDA and bidding for projects at the BPDA in the past, and what are they looking for in the future?
So Carol, what are they looking for? Number one, it's been very receptive. I think the one exciting thing that we were able to really present was the fact that we have a spend plan that's very forward thinking and allows them to actually prepare their vendors to actually know what's coming down the pipeline and to get the necessary technical assistance to be prepared to be competitive on their bids. And so when we presented this spend plan, you could see their reaction of, wow, this has never been done. We've never seen this before. And we believe that's given the BPDA the type of reputation and the type of leadership in this role to say, we're not just thinking about, unbundling and everything else. We're actually trying to give you a better opportunity to be competitive in your bids. Secondly, the technical assistance program, being able to actually specifically understand how to do work with us has been well received as well. And so we're excited about how that's going to carry results. And so we believe that our work has gendered a lot of great responses from the community. I think the one drawback that we still are trying to hammer down is Native American businesses, which once again, it's tough. I've made inroads to try to outreach to that particular group. We're just not successful yet, but we believe we're going to find that advocacy group to help really lay out, because we've been able to touch veterans, women, LGBT, African American, Hispanic, and a whole ecosystem. But it's important to make sure that we have a complete, robust ecosystems to partner with, to include very, very diverse vendors. So it's been very receptive. We're excited about the outcomes, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to really push hard over the next year to get in front of as many groups to promote and present our opportunities.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, I think one of both a blessing and a curse, sometimes folks think we're the city, or they would refer to us as the city, and we have to remind folks we're not the city. So if you go to the city's website, you hear about, our project, you're not going to find it there. But we have BLDC and BIDFA. Bill Nickerson and Gisela Soriano have been extraordinary partners in this as well. They know small businesses, they're connected to the community, and so they're partnered with us, and so it's becoming clear that when we show up, we roll deep, so to speak, right? We have a lot of functions underneath this umbrella, and so once folks know about us, I think awareness is our biggest challenge, and once folks are aware, we, I think, create a really attractive opportunity rather than trying to penetrate into the massive city or a large state organization. We're trying to position it as like, hey, you can get a government contract and get performance here and then go off and market to the larger organizations. And so we're bringing all of our resources to bear on this.
Can I add one more thing, Michelle? I think that's a very astute point as far as just not being distinguishing ourselves from the city. And I think one of the things that we're really excited about is our supply diversity specialist, Robert. And I just want to take a few moments in front of the board to highlight his work between myself and Michelle, having such a dedicated professional to help us really hone in on the day-to-day management and the day-to-day connections and ensuring that we're pulling the staff together to work this process both internally and externally. He's been such an amazing addition to our team. And I will say to you that he has really helped us really push beyond just the flattening of our process, but helping us better understand how to make sure that our promotional events and equitable events, he's actually leading the efforts to actually schedule engage and connect events over the next year, to include doing a technical assistance workshop for P3 with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. So we have gotten really dynamic in this space, and I think you're going to be excited about the results that come forth. But I just wanted to give Robert a quick kudos and attaboy for his work as well.
Thank you.
Could you comment briefly on how you're developing your metrics for where you think we should be and can be moving forward? And also, because questions have come up about this, how do we go about assessing what some of the community impacts may be of increasing procurement in these areas?
Really great question, Dr. Landsmark. Somewhere in our appendix here, we do have the basic table that shows what our availability expectations should be. We have to scroll through a little bit here. Keep scrolling, let you know when you find it. So we have a sense of what those targets should be by category of race. And so again, we're in this the next slide, thank you. So you can see our utilization, and this is based on the study that ran from 2018, I think is when it started. So you can see that essentially we are outperforming overall the the marketplace would have expected us from a statistical point of view to have about $9 million in spend with 17% overall. However, we perform so well with female-owned entities that we're over, yet our diversity spend in the other categories are not acceptable. So our metrics of what we're hoping to see in the future is an increase in the number of contracts in the other categories. So for example, we should be in the next 5 years with Asian Americans have had about $639,000 of contracts. So what we're doing is we go through that buying plan and we're going to try to do matchmaking to figure out how we can start to get these other categories in the mix without dipping into our existing providers, because those relationships are important as well. When it comes to the community, I think that's an interesting question as well, because I think the challenge that we face is we're in a regional marketplace. And so we need to rely on entities outside of the city borders in order to complete all of our work. And so we have to think about what's the third and fourth impact down the line. And so I think that that's where ideas like the diversity plan comes in. Another area that we're trying to gather data or just shine some more light, we've updated our bidder form or respondent form, the space where we just collect the general information. Who are you? Who's your president? What's your tax ID number? There's going to be a section that says, please list certified businesses that you use for supplies or support and your annual spend. Again, not part of the rule for award, but just opening up the space to see what people start to say. A, maybe they'll list somebody that we don't know about that we can call up and add to our list. But B, also to just kind of create that level of accountability and then, shine some sunlight on it to see what that next chain down is. Ultimately, I'll be really excited when we've got filed sub bids and we're bidding out supplies for horizontal construction under 30B while still doing the work under 39M. That's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time for us to get organized to do that. So in the meantime, it's really about contract awards. That's the main data metric that we're going to be monitoring for results. We're going to count interactions, plan holders, and those types of things. But at the end of the day, it's all about contracts.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Additional questions or comments from the board? All right, well, thank you again, Michelle and Barry, for your presentation. So these two items did not need a vote. So thank you. And that now concludes our EDIC agenda. So I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Okay. Moving on to the BPDA meeting. Thank you for joining the November Boston Redevelopment Authority Board meeting at this time. The Boston Planning and Development Agency is continuing to host public meetings in a virtual setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. For more information and updates, visit bostonplans.org. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that I notify the public this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, at Xfinity Channel 24, RCN Channel 13, and Verizon Fios Channel 962. It's also being live streamed at boston.gov/cable. I'll now take roll call to begin this meeting. Ms. Downs.
Present.
Mr. Monahan.
Present.
Dr. Landsmark.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
And I, Priscilla Rojas, am present. Item number 1, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the October 14th, 2021 meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs.
Aye.
Mr. Monahan.
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 16, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. or at such a time and date deemed appropriate by the director to consider the proposed Boston University Fenway Campus 2021 institutional master plan. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 16, 2021 at 5:40 p.m. or at such a time and date deemed appropriate by the director to consider the Herb Chambers Company's Honda of Boston dealership project located in Dorchester as a development impact project. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 4, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on December 16, 2021 at 5:50 p.m. or at such a time and date deemed appropriate by the director to consider the proposed project at 2164 Washington Street, Nubian Square in Roxbury, aka Blair Lot, as the development impact project. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Full call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Mr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 5, Board of Appeal. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Before you tonight, at first I apologize, the light just went out in my office. But before you tonight are 53 zoning petitions that have been prepared by planning staff to be transmitted to the ZBA. This covers their hearings from this past Tuesday and their 3 hearings that are scheduled for December. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 6, request authorization to adopt a text amendment to the zoning code with respect to off-street parking requirements for affordable housing. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Paulimas. For the record, my name is Brian Glasscock. I'm the Deputy Director for Regulatory Planning and Zoning here in the BPDA. Come before you this afternoon with a somewhat unique zoning amendment proposal in that it was spurred by a city council order that had been initiated over a year ago, gone through a number of city council meetings and working group sessions. The proposal, sort of in a nutshell, is to eliminate parking minimums for certain types of affordable housing development where it's more than 60% of the units are affordable at 100% AMI or less. These are projects that are subsidized, funded through state, city, or other funding mechanisms. These are not private developments, strictly private developments, but ones that are receiving some sort of subsidy in order to move forward. And the reason for this, it was spurred on by a couple of fairly high visibility projects, are the following. First, there's a fair amount of information now that we have access to that shows that by and large we build too much off-street parking. We require developments to build more off-street parking than actually gets utilized, and there's some actual data to support this. Second, adds additional cost to these projects. And third, where development projects, particularly affordable housing projects, can't meet the parking minimums because of site constraints or other reasons, or it just doesn't make sense for them, they need relief at the Zoning Board of Appeal. And when that happens, they're exposed to lawsuits and delays, and for a variety of reasons, some, not all of them good reasons. And for that reason, the City Council took this up, and I'm pleased to be joined this evening by District 8 City Councilor Kenzie Bach, one of the sponsors of the order. And the other sponsor was District 6 Councilor Matt O'Malley. I'd like to ask Kenzie if she can talk a little more about what led us to this point and the experience of going through this analysis with the City Council. So, Councilor Bach, if you're available.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden. And please forgive me for coming to you from my phone. My computer's out of commission, so, but I'm pleased to be here. And so I wanted to give some context on this. The council started holding hearings actually a little more than a year ago about sort of the broader umbrella of what are things we could do to speed the process of approval for affordable housing, specifically in the city, knowing that it's something where we just have such a desperate need. And, you know, we have huge funding constraints and we aren't able to fund as substantial and deep of an affordable housing pipeline as we would like. But it's very frustrating when it's not the funding constraint that is the rate limiting factor, but instead sometimes the twists and turns of our approval process. And so we were having a more overarching conversation that then narrowed in on sort of a series of things that could really make an impact. And one of them was parking. And so initially started to look at the parking minimum requirements and what those were and how to think about that sort of within that context. And then what really spurred Councilor O'Malley and I to file this specific proposed text amendment in the spring was the second bad faith lawsuit around this issue in JP. And I think it's important for folks to understand that you know, in the affordable housing world, it's quite common for us in the city to approve projects that have less parking than what's required in the zoning code as a minimum. For instance, formerly homeless individuals, such as those that are being housed at the Pine Street project, which was a huge community process project that everyone was excited about, came out of a lot of conversations about sort of the future of JP and how to make it affordable. That's a project largely of supportive housing for formerly homeless individuals, most of whom do not come with cars. And so the parking minimums have been waived in that case. And then there's also an all senior, all affordable building in JP right at the T that have been approved with parking minimums being waived. And we saw a couple of bad faith lawsuits sort of come at the end of the process after we'd gone through everything with the community, delay these projects. And the Pine Street one ultimately was negotiated and resulted in both time and expense to the project that has delayed it and meant that, like, you know, the supportive housing that we so desperately need, and that's related to all these crises in the city, including at Mass and Cass, is not going to come online as fast as it should have. And then the senior housing continues to be delayed over this issue, this JPNDC project. And it's very frustrating. It's been really moving to hear in this process from the members of Mass Senior Action and the folks who really, you know, are the people on these wait lists waiting for these units to feel like, hang on, we went through all the processes, we crossed all the T's, dotted the I's, and now because the parking minimum requires a variance, that's being used as kind of the legal hook for a lawsuit against the property. So, you know, as somebody who came to the council via the affordable housing world at the BHA, I was really frustrated by this, and Councilor O'Malley had been deeply involved in the community process around both these projects and was very frustrated by it. So, so we really wanted to remove that hook for these kinds of bad faith lawsuits. And I think a couple of important things to note about that. One is that there's obviously a difference between removing the parking minimum that it creates the basis for the lawsuit and the question of how many parking spots you might actually have in a development. And you could obviously still have plenty of parking. And I know the BPDA recently has been working on family developments with BHA that will have parking and all of that. So it's not really about getting rid of parking, but it is about just getting rid of that basis. And, you know, in the council, we had a lot of strong support initially, some nervousness about, well, wait, is this getting rid of all parking for affordable housing? And what about when we've got affordable housing that isn't close to, you know, isn't as close to transit as others, and et cetera. And so we worked through the process over a series of working sessions and hearings, hearing from the public and talking with our departments, and actually ended up with DND sort of working through what the actual pipeline would be that this amendment would have applied to. So in the last 2.5 years, there were 46 projects that it would have applied to, although only 9 of those actually sought a variance from the parking minimums. So, I think it's a pretty targeted thing, but we've just seen recently enough egregious cases that we'd like to do something. And also, I think I just want to stress that, so it applies to 60% or more affordable housing. So like housing developments where 60% or more of the units are affordable. And the reality in the city is that those don't get funded without city participation. So these are projects that we have D&D going through a like deep design review process on, and where we the city is an investor, we've got real hooks in them, and we are literally proactively as the city saying this is a policy priority of ours to get these specific projects built. So I think we feel like that's exactly the kind of project that at the beginning of this whole process we were looking for ways to smooth, and then kind of got kicked into high gear by going from, oh, wouldn't it be nice to speed these up, to, wow, the absence of this change is really slowing precious projects down. So that's a little bit of the context. I was pleased that, as we talked through it and narrowed in on what it was going to impact and sort of the value of it for that specific world of projects, we ultimately passed it through the council in October unanimously, including with councilors who had initially said, wait, what's the implication? So we really was a multi-pronged, repeated public process. And so I'm here today, but I'm here on behalf of all of the council who all voted for this unanimously. And one former councilor, our current mayor, who was a supporter from the start. Just really excited about it. And obviously, as Brian said right at the start, we as the council don't come to you guys frequently with zoning amendments. I think this is an unusual case, and it's one that we feel strongly about, and would love to have your support to send to the planning commission. So thank you so much. I've definitely gone on too long, so thank you.
Hey, thank you, Councilor. And so just let me wrap up by saying there had been an extended process through City Council involving all the district councilors and all the councilors at large. And there was a lot of support at those meetings, particularly from the housing advocacy world. We did hold a public meeting, a BPDA-sponsored public meeting on Monday of this week. Again, there were some voices of concern out there, as we've heard all along, but they tend to be rooted in misconceptions about what this does. The conception was that it eliminates parking for affordable, and that's not at all what it does. What it does is it allows us to right-size the parking based on the type of user and where the project's located. If it's close to transit, obviously it's going to need less parking than if it's further away. If it's for seniors, it may need less parking than for young families. So it provides us that opportunity, but does take away that legal hook. So somebody who operating in bad faith can hold up much needed affordable housing. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm curious as to what effect, if any, this change will have on the existing litigation, which Councilor, you've described as egregious and bad faith.
I'm afraid, Dr. Landsmark, I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to. I don't know exactly how it works, sort of retroactively on that front. The Pine Street one has been settled, and so there it's resolved. But the result has been, like I said, a significant loss of resources and time. I am not. We are tackling this on the policy side, so I am not involved in the legal conversations. But on the other active one.
Yeah, I couldn't speculate on that either. But this wasn't meant to be a retroactive measure at any rate. It was to prevent this in the future, and I'm sure the parties involved in that will be cognizant of the fact that going forward, that's no longer the requirement that you meet those arbitrary parking minimums.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it has any effect on the current litigation, but I will say, as one of the Jamaica Plain residents, I'm well aware that a number of my neighbors were outraged that a private developer of a bar and restaurant could stand in the way of the development of very much needed affordable housing, particularly given the constituencies that were going to be served or are going to be served by this affordable housing. And I, for one, see it as an important step forward. It has to be remembered that these parking requirements were initially put in place in order to assure that on-street parking around affordable housing wouldn't be negatively affected if parking requirements were not in place. But I think given the discussion that has gone on within the city and precipitated by the council, that this is an important step for us to take to address the current housing needs within the city.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
All right, item number 7, request authorization to adopt a map amendment to the Dorchester Neighborhood District with respect to changes to and from open space sub-district. Jeff.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jeff Hampton, Senior Zoning Planner. The memo before you tonight is a proposed map amendment to 2 zoning maps for the Dorchester Neighborhood District. One of the proposals is to rezone property acquired by the Cedar Grove Cemetery from 1F 5000, that's a 1-family district, to open space for cemetery use. And the other one would be city-owned property. We would rezone open space to a 2F 5000. The first request is basically to rezone just over 43,000 square feet of land situated behind the properties along Adams Street in the Lower Mills section of Dorchester. Over the past few years, Cedar Grove Cemetery, as part of its master plan, has acquired additional parcels of land from the abutting property owners to expand their cemetery. The proposed amendment would change it, like I said, from a 1F 5000 zoning district, which allows only 1 families, to open space dash cemetery, which would allow the Cedar Grove Cemetery to provide additional burial space now and in the future, as well as allowing them to provide perpetual care for the existing grave sites. Both the Lower Mill Civic Association and the Cedar Grove Civic Associations have both submitted letters in support of this proposal. The second action that we are asking for tonight is to rezone a city-owned parcel of land at 30 Westville Street, which is just over 11,000 square feet of land. We're asking that that property be rezoned from open space to 2F 5000, which is a 2-family residential zoning subdistrict. The reasoning behind this change is that the Department of Neighborhood Development is preparing to put out an RFP for development of the site after meeting with the surrounding community. And in order for them to put out this RFP, the change in zoning has to take place first. The entire area, the reason why we're zoning it 2F 5000 is because all of Westville Street is zoned 2F 5000. Almost the entire neighborhood between Geneva Avenue and Bowden Street is zoned 2F 5000, including the school across the street, which is Up Academy in Dorchester. Tonight on the call, we have Charlie Tevnin, who is a trustee of Cedar Grove Cemetery, and Shani Fletcher, who works over at D&D. They're available to answer any questions that the board may have when if you have any questions, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for qualifications for house doctor, architectural and engineering services on an as-needed basis for BRA-owned properties. Laura.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and members of the board for the opportunity to bring this before you once again. To follow up on the earlier vote on the EDIC portion of the agenda, I'm requesting authorization to advertise and issue this joint request for qualifications for house doctor, architectural and engineering services on an as-needed basis. The details are the same as those presented earlier today, but I'm happy to provide any additional information or details that may be helpful at this time. And thank you once again for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 9, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the qualified respondents for waterfront activation at Shipyard Park and the Charlestown Navy Yard. Rebecca.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Shipyard Park in the Charlestown Navy Yard is a nearly 12-acre community park with gardens, a playground, public seating, and an amphitheater. Through various planning efforts, a number of uses and program were contemplated for Shipyard Park in an effort to expand public access to and enjoyment of the waterfront area. In 2019, a license was awarded to an RFP respondent to set up a temporary beer and wine garden and conduct activation activities in the park. Per the agreement, proceeds from the sales were used to support public programming and public realm investments in Shipyard Park, which were facilitated by the licensee and overseen by the BPDA. The license was extended for 2 one-year terms, and in 2020, the utilization provided an outdoor public gathering spot and over $58,000 in public activation through the revenue share agreement. The BPDA is interested in building off the success from the prior activation through a new RFP opportunity for a waterfront activation of Shipyard Park. A key objective of the RFP will be to allow the licensee the opportunity to generate reasonable revenue while providing a vibrant public destination for participants from diverse backgrounds. Proposals are expected to include a plan to attract users for Boston neighborhoods and adjacent communities and provide opportunities for local businesses and artists to participate in the proposed activation. The BPDA is proposing that the license term included in the RFP be for a 3-year period with 2 one-year options to extend. The proposed monthly license fee payable to the BPDA will be the total of a flat monthly rent payment plus a percentage of monthly gross receipts. For any funds expended for BPDA-approved public activation, which is free and open to the public, BPDA may award a credit of up to 100% of the monthly percentage fee. The BPDA continues to be committed to increasing access to the waterfront and providing a creative community benefit. Therefore, BPDA staff request authorization to advertise and issue an RFP for waterfront activation at Shipyard Park and the Charlestown Navy Yard. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 10, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for general repair and maintenance services at BRA-owned properties for 1 year with 2 one-year options. Laura.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. And once again, I'm bringing to you a project that was presented as part of the EDIC agenda. We are requesting authorization to advertise and issue a joint invitation for bids for general repair and maintenance services with the EDIC acting as lead jurisdiction on behalf of the BRA. The details are the same as those I presented earlier today, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 11, request authorization to enter into a contract with Casablanca Services Incorporated for landscaping and maintenance services at BRA-owned properties in the downtown waterfront in an amount not to exceed $160,000 per year. Laura.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to present to the board for my final time this evening. I'm requesting your authorization to execute this contract with Casablanca Services for landscaping and maintenance services at BRA-owned properties at the downtown waterfront. This generally includes the BRA-owned properties on the Central Wharf and Long Wharf. As authorized by the board, we have publicly advertised this opportunity. We conducted outreach to diverse firms, held a pre-submission conference, and attracted approximately 40 plan holders. Casablanca was the only firm to submit a bid prior to the deadline. They have ample experience and are a certified minority-owned business. We therefore recommend the award of this contract to them as the responsible and responsive bidder with the lowest total bid price. The contract term will initially be 2 years with 3 one-year options to renew at the BPDA's discretion, and the cost is not expected to exceed $80,000 per year. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Laura. Item number 12, request authorization to enter into an agreement for a donation of 5 Whitaker Wind sculptures, previously part of a public art exhibit of Leopold Galleries LLC's Wind on Water installation that had been on display at the Charlestown Navy Yard. Lauren.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, at the August 15th, 2019 board meeting, the BPDA was authorized to enter into an agreement with the Navy Yard Garden Association, a nonprofit organization focused on activating portions of the Charlestown Navy Yard, and the Leopold Gallery of Kansas City, Missouri, to install the Whitaker art sculpture, Wow, Wind on Water, intended to draw additional tourism to the Navy Yard. The wind sculptures were on display from May 2020 through October 2021. The installment consisted of 31 sculptures grouped into 8 sites along the Boston Harbor Walk and presented a free, family-friendly activity with the ability to practice safe social distancing. The sculptures were a success, and the Navy Yard Garden Association has acquired 5 of the pieces from the Leopold Gallery with the intention of donating them to the BPDA for permanent installment at the Charlestown Navy Yard. According to the terms of the donation, the Navy Yard Garden Association agrees to transfer, convey, and assign to the BPDA all personal property rights to the 5 wind sculptures and represent that they have the right to do so. The Garden Association also acknowledges that the sculptures irrevocably become the property of the BPDA. The display, use, maintenance, and disposition of the pieces are at the sole discretion of the BPDA. And I remembered a picture this time. See? I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
Can these be installed anywhere now or only where they were previously installed? And is there any sort of maintenance agreement? Because if I remember correctly, these don't just sort of sit still.
Correct. They are ergonomic sculptures, and we have agreed to take care of the maintenance. Right now, as you can see in the photo behind me, there are 3 sculptures. There are 2 that were part of a display at a different part of the Navy Yard that are going to be installed in the same box. So these 5 will be on display in this particular area for now, but we as the BPDA have the right to move them as we need to going into the future, including taking them down if they become damaged or need replacement. So
thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments?
I would just like to express our gratitude to the Navy Yard Garden Association for this gift.
They're beautiful. Thank you.
Great. Okay, if there are no further comments, the motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13, request authorization to award tentative designation status to Drexel Village LLC as developer of the Crescent parcel in the Nubian Square area of Roxbury for the construction of 206 rental units and 11 home ownership units, including 153 affordable units, 31,000 square feet of community space for the social service agencies currently located on the Crescent parcel, and a parish space for the St. Catherine Drexel Church, and to take all related actions. Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are very pleased to request board approval to tentatively designate Drexel Village LLC for the redevelopment of the Crescent parcel in the Nubian Square area of Roxbury. The Crescent parcel is an approximately 73,000 square foot site composed of 8 parcels of vacant land, 2 owned by the BPDA, 3 owned by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and 3 owned by the City of Boston. Located on a prominent corner in the intersection of Melnia-Cass Boulevard and Tremont Street, the property abuts the Madison Park housing development to the west and the St. Catherine Drexel Parish Church to the southwest. The property is located in both the Campus High and South End urban renewal areas. The RFP for the Crescent parcel has undergone an extensive community process as part of Plan Nubian Square. Launched in February 2016, Plan Nubian Square builds on and updates the framework in the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan and guides RFPs for 10 publicly owned vacant properties. Community members shaped the development guidelines included in every Plan Nubian Square RFP through 30 public meetings held to date. These guidelines include consistency with area planning history, economic development, affordable housing, sustainable and resilient development, good jobs, diversity and inclusion, and development without displacement. Following 5 community meetings, the Crescent parcel RFP was released in January 2021. After receiving proposals in April 2021, the BPDA convened a project review committee made up of community members to evaluate the proposals. The project review committee interviewed each of the proponents and hosted a well-attended virtual public presentation to solicit public feedback. On October 4th, 2021, the project review committee presented their recommendation of Drexel Village LLC to the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee, and the Oversight Committee voted to approve their recommendation. We're very happy to bring this development proposal to the BPDA board to request tentative designation. And I'd like to introduce Bill Grogan and Jonathan Garland from the Drexel Village team, who will present their development project.
Great. Thank you very much, Morgan. Madam Chair, board members, I'm Bill Grogan, the president of the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, and I'm excited to be with everyone this evening and share our vision for the Crescent parcel in Drexel Village. The Planning Office and J. Garland Enterprises have come together to assemble a uniquely qualified, experienced, and diverse team to create Drexel Village, which is a development that will leverage both the Crescent parcel and the adjacent Archdiocesan property to create a transformative and empowering development that will provide community and cultural benefits, affordable income-restricted rental and homeownership opportunities, and an unprecedented amount of open space. Next slide, please. The Planning Office is a nonprofit housing developer affiliated with the Archdiocese of Boston, and since our inception, we've developed over 3,000 units of affordable and mixed income housing, and we have a long and successful track record of working with the City of Boston and BPDA. And for Drexel Village, we're excited to combine our development experience with Jonathan Garland and J. Garland Enterprises, and I'd like to have Jonathan introduce himself. Next slide.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Jonathan Garland, president of J. Garland Enterprises. We are a Boston-based 100% minority-owned real estate development and design firm. We have extensive City of Boston permitting and Article 80 experience. I myself am a native of Boston with a deep commitment to Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, and surrounding communities. We bring strong community and intergovernmental relations experience, as well as a primary focus on urban multifamily housing. With that, Bill and myself are truly excited to be given this opportunity to work with the local Nubian Square community in the city to bring this project to fruition. Next slide. This is just a general synopsis of our team. We're very excited to be presenting to the community and the city over 70% of our team coming from M and WBE firms with lots of experience here in the city. ourselves as developers, as well as Janey Construction, Bevco with Beverly Johnson, other community partners such as the Act for Boston, ABCD, United Housing Management, which is our management firm. And so we're very excited, as well as our landscape team is WBE. Next slide, please.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. I'll provide a quick programmatic overview, and then Jonathan will provide some more detail on the plans. By combining both the Crescent parcel and the Archdiocesan adjacent parcel, Drexel Village will maximize the affordable housing and community benefits that can be delivered, including education, commercial, open space, and as well as significantly broadening the range of affordable housing options. Drexel Village will provide a mix of affordable and workforce housing, rental, and homeownership units at a variety of income tiers to ensure that units are affordable to a broad range of community residents. We will be creating 217 units of housing with 142 affordable rental units and 11 income-restricted homeownership units. And in addition to the housing units, we will include over 30,000 square feet of community, retail, cultural, parish, and social service space. And then finally, Drexel Village will create an innovative park with over 65,000 square feet of publicly accessible open space. Next slide, please. It's worth noting that Drexel Village will create prominent presence in the community for significant community benefits, including expanded parish, educational, childcare, and program space to enable those services to expand within the community. This includes, as Jonathan mentioned, ABCD, which has served the Nubian Square community for the last decade, the Timothy Smith Network, and then finally, the flexible outdoor open space will include opportunities for community-oriented public art and public spaces that can be programmed in a variety of ways to serve community needs. And now, Jonathan, if you want to walk through some of the design elements of the project.
Sure, next slide, please. So on the plan, one of the primary hallmarks was preservation of the existing trees. There are a number of very mature, very attractive trees on this site, which you can see in the darker, larger green color. So our site really works around those trees, in addition to which we were able to structure a partnership with the adjacent St. Catherine Drexel Parish to essentially expand the site so that we have a very good balance between open space and built space to allow for the programming to happen in this really vibrant 65,000 square feet of community open space at the center of the program. Next slide. These are a couple of vignettes. The top one shows the corner along Tremont Street, which really is sort of the front door to the cafe as a common sort of accessible community-oriented ground floor space. To the right, you see the entrance of the parish. So we envision holding back the sidewalk and the activity there and creating a large plaza that can be accessible from all walks of life at this corner and bringing some vibrancy and pedestrian activity. You can also see further down the wall a piece of an art mural because the development is very much committed to the arts in the area as well as providing artist live work units within the overall development. The picture on the bottom shows a glimpse into the community-oriented outdoor space, which we think will be great for families, seniors in the area, just a really multi-generational experience, as well as open space for the ABCD, which has an affordable after-school program and daycare program. Next slide. These are some other ideas and concepts as we start to bring this open space together. We envision it to be a collaborative process with the community to make sure that it's a warm, welcoming, and safe and inviting experience for all seasons, as well as day and nighttime activity. Next slide. And as far as our diversity plan, we're committed to this vision of life cycle diversity, which means the plan for diversity goes well beyond the bricks and mortar and the building is complete. We've looked to, and we have brought on a MBE, which is our property manager in United Housing Management, which will really manage the building long-term and provide good jobs for folks from the neighborhood. We're also excited about being able to exceed the City of Boston's jobs policy with 60% Boston residents, 60% minority residents, and 15% female residents. Next slide. And then lastly, our investment in the neighborhood, to the Nubian Square neighborhood, we feel is strong. We have broken this into 4 distinct categories: affordable homeownership, asset building and job training, commercial and cultural support, and UHM resident services, which again is our property management firm. 2 points that I will note is that the development team is committing to $250,000 to assist in asset building of the residents of the site by matching their savings to help all households build wealth and equity in the neighborhood. We're also committing to $150,000 to subsidize the commercial space, activate the community park space at Drexel Village, and support the landscaping of the park and community placemaking opportunities. Lastly, we are also committed to job training, youth development, aging in place, and stabilization and self-sufficiency. Next slide. And with that, I believe that concludes our presentation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? It's a great project.
Really great project.
Yeah. All right, hearing and seeing none, motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you and congratulations.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Item number 14, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the new residential building located at 50 Hood Park Drive, formerly known as 480 Rutherford Avenue, as described in the Third Amendment to the Master Plan for Planned Development Area number 51, Hood Business Park, and the Second Amendment and Restated Development Plan for 480 Rutherford Avenue within Planned Development Area number 51, Hood Park. Sarah, or we have no presentation for this one, so a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 15, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the successful completion of the new bicycle storage, retail, and service building located at 6 Stack Street, as described in the First Amendment to the amended and restated master plan for the Planned Development Area number 51, Hood Business Park, and development plan for 6 Stack Street within Planned Development Area number 51, Hood Park. And this does not have a presentation, so a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 16, request authorization to waive further review of the institutional master plan notification form for the renewal of the Emerson College Institutional Master Plan and approve the renewal of the Emerson College Institutional Master Plan pursuant to Section 80D-5.2E, Section 80D-6, Section 80D-8 of the Boston Zoning Code, and to issue an adequacy determination approving the IMPNF for renewal pursuant to Section 80D-5.4 of the code, and to take all related actions. Eddie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. The proposal before you is the Emerson College Institutional Master Plan, seeking a 2-year renewal with no changes to the existing IMP. The proposal does not include any new development projects, but it simply seeks to renew the IMP originally approved in 2002 and last amended in 2018 for a period of 2 years. As with other institutions over the last year and a half, BPDA staff feel this is an appropriate renewal given the pandemic, as it gives Emerson the necessary time to assess its own campus needs and priorities, and then engage in a thoughtful 10-year IMP review process afterwards. As such, this renewal serves largely as an update to Emerson College's operations in Boston. I'll now turn it over to Peggy Ings from Emerson, and she'll go through the brief presentation. Thank you.
Eddie, I promoted Peggy. She's a panelist now, so she just needs to,
Yeah.
she just left.
No, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
here.
good.
I'm glad you promoted me. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Peggy Ings, and I'm the Vice President of Government and Community Relations at Emerson College. And I am very happy to be before you today to have this request of a 2-year extension and renewal of our master plan. I thought what we would do today is take what the BPDA had asked us to do, which is one of their exercises in getting this extension and renewal, and that is, you can turn this next slide, and that is to talk a little bit about live, work, connect, and sustain. I'll begin with the live, which is our student housing that I want to tell you about. The number you see, 3,667, is the number for the Boston campus 2462. You probably can't read that unless you have better eyes than I do. On campus is 2,462, and in the surrounding neighborhoods of the city of Boston and beyond, we have 1,205 off campus. And I thought I'd include a few of where our students are during this semester. We have 156 students at the LA campus in Hollywood. We have 62 at our castle in the Netherlands called Kasteel Weil. And we have 64 in our Paris Arts program, which is new. It's a new portal this year, which we're very excited about. Continuing on to the work, I wanted to tell you that we currently have 567 staff and 872 faculty. Now, I will qualify that number a little bit only because as everyone else is experiencing a reduction in their workforce, we are not exempt from that either. So this, I would say this number of staff and faculty might change the next time we see each other. So basically, that's where we are today. The next slide, or the next graphic here is called Connect. I think this is one of the most important requests for the BPDA to be asking of a college or university. This deals with public realm, and I'm going to wrap into this particular category a few things that I think you'll be very interested about. This number that you see, next slide, please. This is our campus, and I'm just going to show you where we're located. I know you all pretty much know where we are, so I'm going to jump around a little bit here. This is our campus at the corner of Tremont and Boylston Street. What can I say about this? But that we are working with the city Parks and Rec Department. We are working with the Friends of the Public Garden and Common to assist in their first ever master plan for the Common. And we're very excited about being a participant on this side so we can assist with what their plans are, add, subtract things, and maybe contribute to that plan as it evolves. Next slide, please. And this is the slide that I think is one of the most interesting slides that you'll see in a while. This slide demonstrates the number of pedestrians per week at different strategic corners in the business improvement district. The area I'd have you take a look at is in the upper, well, actually it's tilted, it goes down. It has the number 62,975. As of a week ago, that was the number of pedestrians per week that are on the corner of Boylston and Tremont. Now you ask, why is that number amazingly high? Because of the public realm that's occurring all around the college. Next slide, please. Our public realm includes a combination of activities that we've been doing on the Boylston Street side and on the Tremont Street side. This is a sidewalk rendering where we began this sidewalk when the pandemic began. Actually, we got more of the infrastructure done than we did of any of these wonderful items you see here, but we will pursue it. We were also not exempt when all the construction projects were shut down. And when everything opened up slowly, the timing for us to start to rebuild this again for the second time ran out before our students, it ran out because our students were coming in September. What you see in this rendering, though, is a master plan signage project that we also were approved by the city. And I think this has a lot to do with why there are 62,000 people coming along this corridor. There's more signage than you'll ever see, or that you've ever seen around Boylston Street. If you can focus in on that, there are new banners on the building. There are wayfaring signs throughout Boylston, throughout the entire campus, in fact. We have signs in purple and white that light up for every building. We also have, in the left-hand corner, if you can see that, brown and white signs that are designed for all the commercial properties in the little building. And in fact, adding to that realm are 4 restaurants, new tenants of the college. On the corner is Tate. Beside that is El Jefe's Taqueria. There's also one in Harvard Square, you may recall, you may know that. To the right of that is Gabanzo, that's a Mediterranean fare. And then on Washington Street in the Paramount Center is a new restaurant that's in our center called French Quarter. All of this, I would say, contributes to this activity level that has been the trajectory increasing to a point where that number rivals the summer and winter destination area, and I think they're up to maybe 72,000. So just to give you a little flavor of what we've been trying to do to increase the area as a destination point for all people, not just the college, obviously. And during COVID, we had to basically stop any kind of internal or external thought about doing any projects at that time. And that's why we are here today, because it's very difficult to write a 10-year master plan on a COVID campus. And I mean, it's truly plexiglass city, to be honest with you. But the fact of the matter is, it works. Everybody has been pretty safe. We've had a very good low positivity rate. And in fact, we advertise all of our tests to the Chinatown community because they have asked us to give them information on a weekly basis to go into their sampan newspaper. And we're very happy to report that that has been consistent throughout. Next slide, please. I thought we should talk a little bit about something that really is a jewel in the crown. And I think this has a lot to do with public realm and community benefits. And I just wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of things. The little building is the anchor on that corner. It's the anchor for everyone. It is our workhorse, and now it is our show horse. We have received the Boston Preservation Alliance Award for the little building for 2021. We're very proud to announce that. They had the event about 2 weeks ago, and we just wanted to highlight the fact that this building also is Gold LEED certified, as our other buildings. Our Piano Row Residence Hall is Gold LEED. Our LA building is Gold LEED. Our Piano Row Residence Hall is certified. And it's funny, we received that in 2007, prior to all the levels of the LEEDS certificates. So at that time, we received what's called a Construction Leadership and Environmental Design Certified Building Award. So the little building is also, as I said, received a gold LEED as well. And it is now one of the major contributors on our campus to reducing carbon emissions. I'm not, by any stretch of imagination, what you would call a consultant in the area of sustainability. But Emerson College in 2009 signed on to the Presidential Carbon Committee, which focused on reaching carbon neutrality. In October of 2016, Emerson signed on to the new climate commitment, which integrates the goal of both carbon neutrality with climate resilience. And now it provides a system approach to mitigating and adapting to the changing climate. We're very proud to have won several awards on our climate changes, what we've done for Article 84, I believe it is, groundwater, and what we do to our buildings, particularly the little building and the colonial building, with repurposing water going into the building, into a system we have that then repurposes it to toilet water. So we have a lot of different systems, a lot of programs that we have both with the students and the administration. And I'm happy to say that things are moving on in the campus. We had an incredible year with our admitted students. In fact, it was actually one of the highest entry classes ever. Next slide, please. I think we're done. And thank you very much. I'm happy to be before you. No, I think we have, don't we have the, we have one more slide, I believe. Did that go up? Hello?
I think you're out of time. Hold on for just a second.
Oh. Hello? Hello?
Thank you, Peggy. We're just going to wait a second for the presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, this is the final slide, which is one of the most, I think, proud moments when the City of Boston approved a request by the college to have what's called a mapping projection program, whereby the little building would have projected images, projected announcements for a period, I think it's now 4 times a year for 15 days each time.
Okay, thank you very much, Peggy. I'm so sorry, we are short.
That's okay.
We are short.
Thank you all. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you. So do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I have one quick one, and that is, I rarely get to say this, but Peggy, since you left the staff of the then BRA a number of years ago and went to become part of the Emerson community, you've helped transform that arts and communications school into something truly exceptional, and I congratulate you on the work that you've done there.
Well, that's thank you very much, really, Ted. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, additional questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 17, request authorization to issue a certification of approval in accordance with Article 80E Small Project Review of the Zoning Code to approve the construction of 26 residential rental units, including 4 IDP units, 2,204 square feet of retail space, 36 bicycle spaces located at 1813 Dorchester Avenue, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for necessary zoning relief, subject to the BPDA design review, and to take all related actions. Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary. We are here before you this evening to discuss the proposed project at 1813 Dorchester Avenue. The project proposes to construct a new 5-story building at 1813 Dorchester Avenue with 26 rental units, including 4 IDP units and ground floor retail space. Additionally, the project will include 36 bike parking spaces, utilize a high-performance envelope, high-efficiency water heaters, a photovoltaic-ready roof, and will be LEED Gold certifiable. The proponent has also committed to working with the mechanical engineer to provide the most efficient HVAC system. The proposed building complies with the Dorchester Avenue zoning update approved by the BPDA board in November 2013 and enjoyed a strong community process. At this time, I will turn to the developer to go through the project presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Secretary Polimas, board members, and Director Golden. My name is James Christopher, RCA LLC with the project architects. Joining me today is our client, the owner of the property and developer, Mark Kennedy, as well as George Moranci, the zoning attorney. Mr. Kennedy is proposing a new mixed-use building at 1813 Dorchester Avenue, the location of his current commercial painting warehouse. The proposal is for 26 apartment units with over 2,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. As the site is located within a 5-minute walking distance of the Ashmont Rapid Transit Station, the project does not have parking. By not burdening the site with cars and storage. This currently dormant stretch of Dorchester Avenue, as well as providing several building amenities, which I will describe and as Carter has described. Mr. Kennedy will be providing 4 IDP units rather than 3, and a payment, which would be the normal commitment for a proposal of this size. Next slide, please. Just to familiarize with yourself with the site, this is 1813 Dot Ave. It's a 1-story warehouse. Next slide. Bird's eye proximity to Ashmont Station. It's just about 1,000 feet away from Ashmont. It's a little over 1,000 feet in walking distance to Ashmont Station. Next slide. We have multiple bus routes along Dorchester Ave and proximity to MBTA, blue cars, and zip cars. Next slide, please. Just some existing photographs. This is the front view on Dorchester Ave from the south. Next slide, please. This is the avenue from the north looking towards the city of Boston in the corner of Banton Street. Next slide, please. The ground floor and site plan with landscaping plans. So this illustrates the 2 retail spaces, the gray, which consist of an 1,100 square foot retail space on the corner of Banton and Dorchester Avenue, a 1,204 square foot retail space on the
Excuse me, Mr. Christopher, the connection's kind of bad. Maybe you could turn off your camera.
Did that help?
That did.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
No worries.
So just to reiterate, the first retail space on the corner of Dorchester Ave and Banton Street, it's 1,100 square feet. And then we have the entry vestibule at grade. We're also housing a 1-to-1 bike storage room, mail and package room, a residential gym, which the owner has committed to working with local sports programs such as ADSL or the Boys and Girls Club to provide time for them to use that gym, along with the second retail space at 1,204 square feet. Next slide. The overall height of the building along Dorchester Ave is 59 feet to the much recessed penthouse, which is set back from Dorchester Avenue, 10'6" from the edge of the roof to the 2 units on the penthouse, along with 24'4" setback off of Banton Street, and 14'6" off of the right side elevation, which would be our direct abutter on the right. The building will consist of a masonry band at grade, hardy siding up above for floors 2 and 3, and then the 4th and 5th floors would have a standing seam metal with hardy panel along the vertical bays. Next slide. This is the left side elevation along Banton Street, which we will be improving the sidewalk there. Currently, that sidewalk along Banton is only above 4 feet. We'll be able to get that up to 9 feet to create a complete street to the end of our property, along with the 9-foot sidewalk along Dorchester Avenue. Next slide, please. This is the rear elevation, which shows the rear entry to the building. On the right end, which addresses Banton Street, would be the a secondary pedestrian entrance, which will also house outdoor visitor bicycle storage. And to the left end, we have the exit from the residential gym, which will house a small patio, and then there will be outdoor amenity space in that area as well for the tenants. Next slide, please. This is the current street view along Dorchester Avenue. Next slide. And then this is the building in our rendering. So looking at the building along Dorchester Avenue, you can see the retail space on the left end, the complete sidewalk, and then the main entry in the middle bay there, and then the secondary retail space on the right end. Next slide, please. 26 new development apartments, 55 construction jobs, and 2,305 square feet of retail space. And MBTA bus passes, the MBTA passes and a live tracking screen in the lobby, along with Blue Bike memberships for the residents as well. Next slide, please. And with that, we're happy to try to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments from the board?
I have one. I'm all for the bikes and blue bikes and walking and the access to the T. But when I look at a project like this with 26 units and 4 IDP, it's unlikely that the vast majority of the people that live there won't have at some point access to a car, whether it's to take the kids to a sporting practice, an event, school, go to the grocery store, that kind of thing. So as we continue to add units to our neighborhoods, it's like musical chairs. We've removed chairs or parking spots and are adding people or cars. So that's my concern when I look at a project of this size. Again, I'd like to see people use bikes and alternative transportation, but I think it's unlikely that you'd have the vast majority of the people living here not want access at some point to a vehicle. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, Mr. Miller, thank you for the question. We certainly appreciate the concern. It's something that we run across in pretty much all of our development projects. Early on in several iterations of this project and working with the BPDA, we did have options that included as much parking as we could incorporate into the building. But ultimately, with the narrowness of the site, we ended up at like 4 spaces, and it really made the first floor function of the building suffer. So that's the thought process behind arriving at a transit-oriented development. We'd have preferred to incorporate more parking. It just, unfortunately, in this site was not feasible.
And Jim, what was the feedback from the neighbors on that issue?
There was definitely some concern with the neighbors on parking, and we did our best to try to mitigate that and offset the concern with the bicycle storage and the proximity to the MBTA station.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Item
you.
number 18, Request authorization to issue a director's determination pursuant to Section 80A-6 of the Boston Zoning Code in connection with the notice of project change for the 449 Cambridge Street project to remove the compact living units component, to reduce the number of units from 166 to 152, including the reduction of IDP units from 28 to 26, and to take all related actions. Caitlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Caitlin Coppinger. I'm a project manager for the proposed notice of project change for 449 Cambridge Street in Alston. The project originally received board approval on August 13, 2020 for the construction of 2 new residential buildings, together containing a total of approximately 166 residential units, 2,400 square feet of ground floor retail space, and approximately 80 accessory parking spaces. The original project had 10 or more dwelling units that fell within the compact unit policy, and the proponent had agreed to comply with the compact living guidelines pursuant to the City of Boston's pilot program. On October 27, 2021, the proponent filed a notice of project change to the BPDA detailing changes to the housing unit mix and the removal of the compact living units. All other aspects of the original project will remain the same. The NPC project no longer has any compact living units, and due to this removal, the unit sizes have increased and therefore reduced the number of units from 166 to 152. The unit mix has also changed. The new project now includes 79 studios reduced from 88, 46 one-bedroom units reduced from 58, 25 two-bedroom units increased from 18, and the 2 three-bedroom units remain. The original project included a commitment to provide 17% of the total number of residential units as within the inclusionary development policy. The NPC project will maintain this commitment by providing 26 IDP units, which is the original 17% proposed. 2 of these units will be provided at 60% AMI, 3 will be provided at 110% AMI, and the remainder will be 70% AMI. The BPDA sponsored a virtual public meeting on November 15th to provide the community a project update. This public meeting was advertised in the Boston Bulletin as well as on the BPDA calendar. I want to thank you guys for your time and consideration tonight. I have Dave Lamister from Acre Lane Partners and their architect team from Perkins & Will to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 19, request authorization to disperse $36,250 to the Mayor's Office of Resilience, Racial Equity in support of the creation of the Dialogue to Action program and to enter into a memorandum of agreement. Barry.
Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this because I have a group of uncompensated students providing pro bono service to this group.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Director Golden, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Barry, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Boston Planning and Development Agency. In order to further the agency's commitment to ensure that all Bostonians are more inclusively represented in the community process, the agency continues to broaden its outreach strategies by creating new opportunities for community engagement. The agency is focused on providing spaces where all residents, including renters, low-income households, people who are experiencing homelessness, people of color, youth, and families, including single-parent families, have more of a voice in both the procedural and substantive process of the agency. Dialogues to Action is a community-based initiative that creates the opportunity for community members to have a conversation about race in a safe and intimate setting. D2A grew out of Boston Talks about racism that began in 2006 and hosted hundreds of residences. Dialogue to Action is a dynamic city endeavor which makes building community trust central to all of our outreach efforts, while seeking to create the space to listen and heal old wounds within the community, and it also allows for continual integration of the community voices into all of our race and equity gender outcome strategies for the BPDA. This partnership with the Mayor's Office of Resiliency and Racial Equity through the DTA will allow the agency to build on its efforts to increase opportunities for equitable engagement while engaging local organizations, businesses, agencies, and communities in a wide range of dialogues, programs, and projects related to racial justice and equity across the greater Boston community. In order to further these efforts, I recommend that the director be authorized to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the City of Boston acting through the Mayor's Office of Racial Resiliency and Racial Equity for the purpose of distributing $36,250 to the MORE in support of the creation of the Dialogue to Actions program. Thank you for your time, consideration, and questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Barry. Item number 20, request authorization to enter into a grant agreement with the Builders of Color Incorporated to disperse $45,000 to the BCC in connection with the creation and support of the Builders of Color Core Fellowship and a Real Estate Diversity and Inclusion Fellowship. Barry.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary of Homes. Boston Planning and Development Agency is deeply committed to the planning and providing an inclusive growth in the city of Boston and creating opportunities for everyone to live, work, and connect while promoting increased access and diversities in Boston's commercial real estate sector to promote the economic well-being of minority businesses and communities that we serve. Builders Coalition convenes real estate professionals of color, private firms, government agencies, trade organizations, and community for nonprofits to collectively create greater opportunities for education, employment, and partnership for nonprofits and financing. BCC is positioned to broaden opportunity, amplify professional networks in the critical program areas of education, jobs, land development, and capital. Colors of Coalition will be launching 2 distinct fellowship programs to advance access, diversity, equity, and inclusion objectives in the Greater Boston commercial real estate sector. Programming for each fellowship will run once monthly for 6 months. Each participant will be offered an opportunity to extend their work individually with the consultancy for an additional 6-month period. Number 1 is the Minority Leadership Fellowship will assist minority firms in order to develop further technical skills with respect to bidding, contracting, financial management, and project management to increase capacity to grow their businesses and participate in larger developments. Number 2, the Real Estate Diversity, the Red Eye Fellowship will assist majority white firms to develop and implement intangible solutions to diversify all the areas of practice, including recruitment, retention, leadership development, contracting, co-ownership, and culture setting. These fellowships will continue to work and build capacity and capabilities. The BPDA is a critical anchor in this work as a strong partner in creating equity in the industry. I recommend that the board authorizes the disbursement of $45,000 to the Buildings of Coalition Incorporated in connection with the creation and support of a Buildings of Core Fellowship and a Real Estate Diversity and Inclusion Fellowship. Thank you for your time and consideration and questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
I just want to say I'm really happy to see this new pipeline to opportunity inside our organization. It's really exciting and looking forward to seeing, meeting the fellows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 21, personnel. David.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. David Peer, Director of Human Resources. And for BRA this evening, I have 1 status change with details in your board packet and 2 departures. Mary Canassis, Senior Planner 3 in Planning, effective October 31st. And Carolyn Bennett, Deputy Director of Geographic Information Systems, effective November 6th. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 22, contractual. I need a motion to pay the bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Item number 23, director's update. Dr. Golden. Director Golden, we can't hear you.
Sorry, folks.
There we go.
I think I'm good now. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you. And first, I want to offer my congratulations on behalf of the agency to our new mayor, Michelle Wu, who was sworn in this past Tuesday. Mayor Wu is, of course, the first woman and person of color to be elected to the position of mayor of Boston. This agency staff has worked for many years with Mayor Wu in her role as a Boston City Councilor. We've all worked with her and her staff and productively and look forward to collaborating with the new mayor and her team on the important work that lies ahead for all of us on behalf of the people of Boston. So welcome to Mayor Wu and her team, which are beginning to populate the building 50 hours into the new administration. I think we're about 55 hours. So this is all still fresh, but we're beginning to have daily contact and look forward to the days ahead. Tonight, you, the board, approved a text amendment to the zoning code that we're pretty excited about. It will eliminate, again, off-street parking minimums for affordable housing developments. The amendment will remove parking minimums for residential developments where at least 60% of the units are income restricted at 100% area median income or below. This will help us streamline and expedite much needed transit-oriented affordable housing in Boston. The text amendment to the zoning code will now go, after your approval, to the zoning commission for approval and ultimate implementation into the planning and development work that we do. So an exciting policy innovation coming out of the work of staff, in which we collaborated extensively with our colleagues throughout the City of Boston and City of Boston agencies. Finally, we're 1 month away from the end of the calendar year, one more board meeting after this one. We're at 13 million square feet of development approved this year. That is a really significant number in historic terms. Last year, we were at more than 15 million square feet. So we'll be knocking right up against that number. Hard to know until you all make your decisions in December where we end up. 13.1 is a significant number. It speaks to 12,000 construction jobs and about 20,000 jobs not related to construction that flow from all of this activity. So that's jobs for Bostonians, big numbers of jobs. It's 7,000 units of housing and 2,000 units of income restricted affordable housing. So 2021 is following the trend we've had of multiple years of developing and delivering really important goods for the people of Boston. So just a snapshot of where we are. With that, nice to see you. Have a great evening. Look forward to seeing you again in December.
Thank you, Director Golden. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Downs?
Aye.
Mr. Monahan?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much and see you next month.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Aye.